He was 1 mile from the finish line when his legs simply stopped answering him. Witnesses later described a healthy young runner, someone who trained for miles every week, dropping to the pavement mid-stride. Paramedics reached him within minutes. This is the kind of collapse cardiologists have documented for decades in seemingly fit endurance athletes, and it points to a heart condition that can hide behind years of excellent performance. Before that day, nothing about him suggested illness. He ran regularly, kept a disciplined training schedule, and by every outward measure was in better cardiovascular shape than most people his age. Athletes like him often pass routine physicals without concern because a strong, enlarged heart is exactly what endurance training is supposed to produce. That expectation is part of why hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a condition where heart muscle thickens without an obvious cause, is so difficult to catch early. It affects up to 1 in 500 people across every age group, and many who carry the genetic changes behind it never notice a symptom until something forces the issue. For a competitive runner, fatigue, breathlessness, or a racing heartbeat can look identical to ordinary exertion. The condition doesn't announce itself with dramatic warning signs in most people. It simply waits, quietly reshaping the heart's muscle walls until physical strain places a demand the heart can no longer meet. In many documented cases of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, the heart has already been thickening for years before any single dramatic moment occurs. The interventricular septum, the wall separating the heart's 2 pumping chambers, gradually grows thicker than it should, along with the surrounding ventricle walls. That thickened tissue makes the heart's chambers stiffer and smaller inside, so they fill with less blood between beats. Pressure inside the left ventricle and the left atrium rises as a result. For someone in excellent physical condition, this can be masked for a long time. Athletic training itself causes the heart to enlarge and adapt, a pattern doctors call athlete's heart, and on the surface, it can resemble the abnormal thickening of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Distinguishing between a healthy athletic heart and a diseased one is one of the harder judgment calls in sports cardiology. Early symptoms, when they appear at all, tend to be easy to dismiss. Shortness of breath during exertion, an uncomfortable awareness of the heartbeat, occasional lightheadedness, or fatigue that seems out of proportion to the effort. Dehydration is known to make these symptoms worse, which matters for endurance sports, where fluid loss during a long race is common. Chest pain can occur too, caused by reduced blood flow to the heart's own arteries even without any blockage. On a standard physical exam, a physician listening carefully might detect a specific kind of heart murmur, one that changes character depending on body position, growing louder when less blood returns to the heart and quieter when more blood fills it. Other subtle findings, like an unusual double-peaked pulse, can appear on closer clinical examination. But these signs are easy to miss in a brief checkup, especially in a young, otherwise healthy-looking patient. The definitive tools for catching the disease are an electrocardiogram, which records the heart's electrical activity, and an echocardiogram, an ultrasound of the heart that can directly measure how thick the muscle walls have become. A family history can also raise suspicion, since the condition is most often passed down through families in a dominant genetic pattern, meaning a single altered gene copy inherited from one parent can be enough to cause it. Without a known family history or a prior test flagging the thickened walls, an athlete can go years, even a lifetime, without anyone ordering the specific test that would reveal what's happening inside the heart. The moment that changes the story for cases like this one is usually not a symptom at all. It's the finding on the echocardiogram after collapse, a thickened septum and ventricle wall, sometimes measuring far beyond what training alone could explain. That single measurement reframes everything that came before it. Symptoms that looked like normal athletic fatigue get reread as early warning signs of a heart that was never simply in great shape, but was structurally different from the start. Once hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is suspected, clinicians have to rule out other explanations for a thickened heart. Athlete's heart is the first consideration, since intense training genuinely enlarges the heart. But that enlargement is usually more uniform and tends to shrink somewhat with deconditioning, unlike the disease. High blood pressure can also thicken heart muscle over time. Two rarer inherited conditions, Fabry disease and Friedreich's ataxia, can produce a similarly enlarged heart, but they follow different inheritance patterns, X-linked for Fabry disease and autosomal recessive for Friedreich's ataxia, which helps doctors tell them apart from hypertrophic cardiomyopathy's dominant pattern. The mechanism behind the danger is mostly electrical, not just structural. The thickened septum can interfere with the heart's bundle branches, the specialized fibers that carry electrical signals to the ventricles, and disrupt the coordinated squeeze that keeps blood moving efficiently. That combination of a stiff, poorly filling chamber and a heart prone to erratic electrical rhythms is what creates the risk of sudden cardiac death, particularly during intense physical exertion when the heart's demands spike. Doctors weigh several known risk factors when judging how dangerous a given case is: a previous cardiac arrest, sustained abnormal heart rhythms, an unusual drop in blood pressure during exercise, unexplained fainting spells, a family history of premature sudden death, and a wall thickness measured on echocardiogram beyond a certain range. None of these findings guarantee an event will happen, and their absence doesn't guarantee safety either, which is one of the genuine limitations of current risk prediction in this disease. Treatment decisions follow from that risk picture. Medications such as beta blockers, verapamil, or disopyramide are used to ease the heart's workload and control symptoms. For people found to be at higher risk of dangerous rhythms, an implantable cardiac defibrillator can be recommended, a device that monitors the heartbeat and can deliver a corrective shock if a life-threatening rhythm starts. When medication and devices aren't enough, surgical options exist, including a procedure called septal myectomy, which removes a portion of the thickened muscle, or in the most severe cases, heart transplantation. What can be said with confidence is this: hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is one of the more common inherited heart conditions, estimated to affect up to 1 in 500 people, and it can exist quietly in someone who appears, by every external measure, to be in peak physical condition. With appropriate treatment, the yearly risk of dying from the disease drops to under 1%, which is a meaningfully different outlook than the sudden dramatic collapses that tend to define public perception of the condition. What this case cannot tell us is how any other individual athlete's heart will behave. Not everyone with a thickened septum will collapse during a race, and not everyone who collapses during exertion has this disease. The relationship between training, genetics, and cardiac risk is specific to each person's anatomy, family history, and the particular mutation involved when one is identified. What the pattern does support is a broader clinical lesson that cardiologists have emphasized since the condition was first formally described by Donald Tier in 1958. Physical fitness and cardiac health are not always the same thing, and screening tools like family history review, electrocardiograms, and echocardiograms exist precisely because appearance alone cannot rule out this disease. Go back to that mile marker, to a runner whose legs simply stopped listening. It wasn't a failure of effort or preparation. It was a heart that had been quietly built differently for years, thickened along walls that were never going to behave like an ordinary athlete's heart, no matter how much training was logged. That gap between how someone looks and what's actually happening inside their chest is the real subject of this story. And it's the reason hypertrophic cardiomyopathy remains one of the more sobering reminders in sports medicine that strength and safety are not the same measurement. This video is based on a publicly documented medical case and is intended for education and storytelling only. It is not medical advice. If you are experiencing concerning symptoms, consult a licensed medical professional. Medical mysteries. Every symptom has a story. Every patient deserves to be heard. Medical disclaimer. This video is based on real, publicly documented medical case reports and is intended for educational and storytelling purposes only. It is not medical advice. If you or someone you know is experiencing similar symptoms, please consult a licensed physician immediately.